Hello everyone, today we're diving into something that feels borderline illegal in a good way. You're in your room, half dressed like a tired librarian, half scrolling through the void. And suddenly, the question hits, why can't I remember anything unless it's from a meme or childhood trauma? You glance over, there's your to-do list, untouched. The groceries, forgotten. Your best friend's birthday, missed it again. But somehow, you do remember the lyrics to a cereal jingle from 2003. And now it's stuck in your head. You're welcome. Let's face it, you probably wouldn't survive in a prehistoric jungle. But you'd absolutely crush a game of Jeopardy if the categories were random TikTok sounds and obscure movie quotes. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and current time in the comments. I love knowing where in the world my sleep-deprived brain tribe is tuning in from. Now, calm down, turn on the fan for some soothing background noise. And let's begin today's journey of listening and healing together. Your mind flashes back to the first time you suspected just a little that maybe your brain had some kind of hidden superpower, not the am I enough kind of self-doubt. No, this was, why do I remember all the water-type Pokemon from Gen 3 in 12.5 seconds flat? Picture this. You're standing in Target under harsh fluorescent lights. The toothpaste aisle stretching longer than your last relationship, a friend asks. You remember what we need and you nod, pulling out your phone, then pause. Nah, don't need it. I turned our list into a Savage Love remix and you start rapping it out loud in public. Your friend looks at you like you just hacked your own brain. But the wild part, it worked. You still remember it. Almond milk, whole wheat bread, cage-free eggs. Lemon-scented floor cleaner, Jason Derulo saved you from a second grocery run. That moment, it changed everything. Turns out, your brain doesn't want to learn the way schools teach. It wants what's emotional, hilarious, weird things with flavor. You remember a weird license plate from high school just because it looked like your old Wi-Fi password. That's not logic. That's neuroaesthetic chaos. You might have heard that humans are 7x more likely to remember something that surprises them. It's a tired factoid. But every time you recall the way you memorize chemical elements by assigning each one a different haircut, you get it deeply. Experts are still debating whether the modern brain is evolving to process images faster than sounds. But you already know your truth. You learn best when you're singing while cooking ramen in noise-canceling headphones pretending you're in an airport montage. You've realized learning isn't input, it's attachment. When you remember a lecture because the classroom smelled like coconut lotion, or recall an entire textbook chapter thanks to a stupid cat sticker in your notebook. That's not randomness. That's neurochemistry in action. And the first time you truly felt this power, it wasn't in a classroom or from a self-help book. It was right there in the middle of Target. With lemon-scented cleaner and a Jason Derulo beat, suddenly, memory wasn't some distant academic thing. It was sticky, real, yours. You couldn't help but laugh. Why didn't they teach us this from the start if school had let you learn through memes, beats, and chaotic visuals? You'd probably be a PhD by now. But life doesn't hand out cheat codes that easy. So you made a quiet decision. If you can't change the system, you'll change the way you receive the system. One small shift, start linking memory to emotion, sound, sensation. The result? Stuff you used to forget in 5 minutes suddenly stuck. Like that ramen you burned to the bottom of the pot, still there. Never letting go. In that exact moment, not during finals week. Not while reading productivity blogs, you felt something different. You weren't just remembering things, you were unlocking something. Not because you were smarter, but because you were finally using your brain the way it was designed to be used. And that was the beginning of everything. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling like it owes you money. The hum of the fan is soft, hypnotic, somewhere in your apartment. Your neighbor sneezes and you somehow remember exactly which Harry Potter house they said they were in at last year's BBQ. It was Hufflepuff. You judge them silently. And yet, you can't remember where you put your AirPods again. It's okay. Your brain isn't broken. It's just doing exactly what it evolved to do, prioritize information that has emotional weight. Even if that weight is mild social awkwardness during potato salad, you start to notice patterns. You remember weird, useless things like the fact that shrimp can see colors we can't. Or that wombats poop in cubes. Why? Because they made you feel something, usually confusion. Meanwhile, the things you're supposed to remember, deadlines, names, where you parked, your brain just quietly deletes them like they're expired coupons, which, let's be honest, they kind of are. You begin testing this. You sit down with a list of medical terms or historical dates or legal jargon and you give each one a weird visual, a sound, a backstory. You turn Magna Carta into a TikTok lawyer with a British accent. Suddenly, you're remembering it. Not because it's important, but because it's absurd. Neuroscientists talk about this all the time. Well, some of them, the rest are still debating whether episodic memory, your personal timeline of life's weird moments, is stored the same way as factual memory. But you're too busy turning your grocery list into Broadway lyrics. You even try something wilder. You build a memory palace, not the fancy Sherlock Holmes version. Yours looks like a chaotic IKEA showroom mixed with your childhood bedroom. Each corner holds something ridiculous. The definition of mitochondria is hanging off a lava lamp. The periodic table is carved into your old Tamagotchi. And you walk through it in your mind, slowly, with intention. You feel the click. The brain responds not like a student, but like an artist waking up. It likes this. It wants weird. It wants real. It wants something it can taste. One time. You memorize the phases of mitosis using different Starbucks drinks. Prophase is pumpkin spice. Metaphase is matcha. People laughed. You aced the quiz. You didn't care that it was unconventional. You cared that it worked. The science behind this. Emotionally charged content triggers the amygdala, which flags memories for stronger storage. It's like putting a VIP wristband on that fact. It gets fast-tracked into long-term memory while the boring stuff waits outside in the cold. That's why you still remember the exact way your ex pronounced croissant, but can't remember your bank login. And here's the kicker. Once you realize your brain isn't trying to sabotage you, but is just wired for sensation, not spreadsheet logic, you stop fighting it, you start feeding it. On purpose. Now, you catch yourself creating narratives for everything. A password becomes a character. A boring fact becomes a punchline. You start describing things as if you're a narrator in a Netflix docuseries, not because you're dramatic. Okay, maybe a little, but because narrative sticks. You once read that the brain is 20 times more likely to remember a fact if it's wrapped in a story. 22, that's like science's way of yelling, hey, maybe stop cramming and start imagining. So you do. Now you're no longer just trying to memorize, you're designing memory. You're layering emotion, absurdity, rhythm, and visuals until that once dull information sings in your head. Like a Broadway cast stuck in traffic, you still lose your keys, you still forget to text back. But when it matters, when you choose to remember, something strange and powerful happens. It sticks. Because now, memory isn't a task, it's a story. And you're the one writing it. You're standing in the kitchen, spoon deep in a jar of peanut butter like some kind of postmodern philosopher. You're not even hungry, you're thinking about that one time you tried to memorize your high school biology notes by reading them out loud in a British accent. Did it work? Absolutely. Did it confuse your cat? Also, yes. But more than that, it stuck. You finally start seeing it clearly. Memorization isn't about grinding. It's about associating. You need anchors, textures, echoes. That's when you realize memory isn't a drawer you open. It's a web you build one bizarre, beautiful thread at a time. And suddenly, you see it everywhere. You're listening to a podcast about deep-sea creatures. And one fun fact blows your mind. Jellyfish don't have brains, but they remember patterns somehow. That reminds you of your old math teacher, not because she was brainless, she was terrifying, but because she wore the same perfume every Tuesday. You still remember the quadratic formula just from the scent of vanilla citrus horror. So you start experimenting with your environment. Every time you learn something new, you pair it with something else: a candle scent, a random song, the taste of a certain tea, learning that acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. Play Dancing Queen on repeat, learning French verbs. Chew cinnamon gum. You turn your life into a sensory jungle. There's a name for this, of course. It's called context-dependent memory. Your brain forms stronger connections when the learning context is rich, sensory, and weirdly specific. Scientists still argue whether smell or sound is more powerful for triggering recall. But you know the truth. It's whatever makes you feel. Your morning routine starts to change. Instead of doom scrolling, you play lo-fi beats and read aloud whatever you need to memorize. You speak it like poetry. You scribble it on sticky notes and stick them to your mirror like affirmations, written by a sleep-deprived wizard. And slowly, the chaos starts to work in your favor. One day, you're out with friends, and someone mentions some obscure Supreme Court case. Everyone groans, but not you. You grin. Oh yeah, that's the one I remembered by imagining the justices as cast members on Survivor. Ruth Bader Ginsburg won the immunity idol. They stare, you smile, because it worked again. The secret isn't in being a genius. The secret is giving your brain permission to be weird. You've stopped forcing it to be a filing cabinet and started letting it be what it truly is: a wild, emotional, drama-obsessed sponge. And it pays off. Fast. You start taking 10 minutes a day, not more, to create bizarre little memory scenes in your head. You're walking through a museum. Each painting is a concept you need to learn. You look at one, and boom, the image of a dancing sloth helps you recall Newton's second law. Is it ridiculous? Yes. Does it work? Also, yes. And here's a secret twist: the more ridiculous the imagery, the faster it works. Your brain remembers wrongness better than accuracy. It flags anomalies. That's why you still remember that one weird Subway order your ex made in 2017. Turkey, olives, and marshmallow fluff. Yeah, never forget. Some researchers believe this von Restorff effect, where distinct things are more memorable, is evolutionary. Back in the day, it helped our ancestors remember which berry didn't kill their cousin. Now, it helps you remember the difference between meiosis and mitosis. Thanks, evolution. So now, you're not afraid of forgetting. You know how to anchor anything you want into memory if you give it just a little spice, a little narrative, a little chaos. The real trick: you stopped trying to be productive and started trying to be memorable. You're in the grocery store, staring at a can of chickpeas. Like it just insulted your mom, you forgot your list. Again. But here's the twist, you don't panic. You smile, because you remember the technique. You start reconstructing your list by walking through the rooms of your imaginary apartment. In the shower, there's a singing bananas, check. On your couch, a rotisserie chicken doing yoga chicken. Got it. In your fridge, a bottle of oat milk crying because it's expired. Oat milk. Boom. It's not memory, it's theater. You've mastered the method of loci, aka the memory palace technique. But yours isn't filled with Grecian columns and marble busts. It's chaotic. It's personal. There's a reason the carton of eggs lives under your virtual bed. That's their business. And that's why it works, because the more personal and emotionally charged your memory palace is, the stronger the recall. That's what research suggests. Anyway, although experts still debate how much of it is about spatial memory versus narrative immersion, but you don't care, you're too busy high-fiving your mental dragon who guards your coffee filters. You start using this trick everywhere. Studying for an exam, turn each chapter into a room. Need to remember a pitch for work. Visualize each key point as something wildly specific like a raccoon in a suit. Pitching your cue to numbers, you'll never forget him. His name is Randall. It gets even better when you combine it with movement. You pace while rehearsing lines. You dance a little when you recite definitions. You become a one-person, brain-powered flash mob. Why? Because the brain loves physicality. That's why you still remember choreography from that one school play, but can't remember your Netflix password again. Some scientists think this is linked to embodied cognition, the idea that your brain processes information more deeply when the body is involved. Others argue it's just a side effect of increased engagement. Either way, you don't need to agree on the academic jargon. You just need to remember you left the bread with the singing hamster in your imaginary bathroom. You've learned to build layers of connection side. Movement, absurdity, sound. That's your real trick. You're not memorizing in straight lines anymore. You're building spiderwebs messy, strong, beautiful. You even start doing this with people's names. Meet someone named Claire, you imagine a clarinet dancing. In a chair, Jason. A jar of salsa doing jujitsu. Mona. You picture the Mona Lisa riding a motorcycle. Do people think you're weird? Sometimes. Do you care? Absolutely not. Because you remember things in seconds that used to take you hours. You're not just memorizing facts. You're curating experiences. That's why it works. You've turned your mind from a filing cabinet into a theme park. And the brain loves theme parks. So next time you're wandering the cereal aisle and someone asks, "Hey, didn't you forget your list again?" You just smile, because no, you didn't. You're already there in your head watching a flamingo dance on a box of granola. And that means it's time to check out. You're on a Zoom call, pretending to take notes while actually doodling a spaghetti monster in the corner of your notepad. It's fine. You already memorized the talking points for this meeting using a sock puppet with a monocle named Gregory. That's your life now. Your memory game has reached a level where even your distractions have structure. You're not just remembering random facts, you're strategically stacking them. Using techniques so old they predate sliced bread but feel futuristic in your hands. You've tapped into the power of chunking, the concept simple but genius. Instead of trying to memorize 8 separate digits like your Wi-Fi password from hell, you group them into meaningful clusters. Suddenly, 34,982,715 becomes 34,98715, or better, you turn it into a date, a street address, or a football score. Boom, instantly easier. Your brain is lazy but in a cute, survival-focused way. It doesn't want 8 new things. It wants 3 familiar ones. You think back to childhood. You could recite Pokemon stats, song lyrics, or cheat codes effortlessly. Not because your brain was magical, but because the info was chunked, rhythmic, and emotionally loaded. That's the trifecta. Now you apply it on purpose. You're learning a new language? You chunk vocab into categories like stuff I'd say in a crisis or flirty words I'll never use. But like knowing, you memorize lists of presidents by imagining them as contestants on The Bachelor. Lincoln doesn't get a rose. You group medical terms by what they sound like, not what they mean. Suddenly, acetaminophen is in a boy band with amoxicillin. And it's not just about facts. You chunk time, too, instead of seeing your day as one exhausting block. You split it into 3-act plays: morning chaos, midday quest, nighttime. Boss battle, you even give each segment a theme song. Yes, you made playlists. Neuroscience backs you up again. Chunking uses your brain's working memory limits efficiently. Most people can only hold for 7 bits of information at once, unless those bits are grouped meaningfully. Some scientists argue it's the only reason. We can do complex tasks like reading or driving without collapsing, and yet people still try to memorize things raw, like chewing coffee beans instead of brewing them. Not you. You chunk with flair, you link chunks with images, movements inside. Jokes, you build bridges between bridges. You make memory modular, one time. You helped a friend prep for an interview by turning the STAR method into a rap battle. Between situations and results, did it make sense? Barely. Did they remember it perfectly? You bet. The weird part, you start feeling smarter not because your IQ changed, but because your access to your brain improved. You're not storing more, you're retrieving faster. And retrieval speed feels like magic in a world addicted to Google. You even start teaching people casually, gently, over coffee or late-night texts. Don't memorize all 12 steps, you say. Just group them into 3 stories, and when their face lights up, you know it worked. You've turned a cognitive limitation into a creative advantage, and that's the secret. Memory isn't just a vault, it's a dance floor. The steps are weird and sometimes the music skips. But if you chunk the beat right, you never miss a move. You're brushing your teeth, staring into the mirror like you're in a movie montage about a genius hacker, but instead of cracking encrypted systems, you're cracking the real code. How to memorize faster than feels legal, because now you're using spacing. Spacing is the idea that reviewing material over time rather than cramming makes it stick deeper, longer, and stronger. But you don't just know the theory. You've made it your religion. You've stopped binge learning. Instead, you plant knowledge like little seeds throughout your week. Monday, basic concepts. Wednesday, quiz yourself in the car while stuck behind someone who clearly forgot how left turns work. Friday, a walk and talk review session with your inner narrator, who now sounds like David Attenborough. It's not just about repetition, it's about rhythm. And the rhythm is built on forgetting just enough. Studies suggest there's a desirable difficulty sweet spot where you start to forget something, then recall it just in time. That moment, that's when the brain says, oh, this must be important, and builds a neural Fort Knox around it. So you lean into it. You set tiny reminders on your phone, random pings that just say things like, remember mitosis? Or what was the capital of Mongolia again? Ulaanbaatar. Duh. These aren't interruptions. They're echoes. You scatter them like breadcrumbs through your day. You even gamify it. Miss a recall, 1 push-up, get it right. You reward yourself. with something equally valuable, closing another tab and drinking actual water. Some experts are still debating how long the ideal spacing interval is. 1 day, 3 days, a week. But you know the truth. The best timing is the one that fits your life. Because consistency beats optimization. Always start so you build a loop, a cozy, low-pressure loop. Every Sunday, you preview what you want to learn. Then you scatter mini reviews across the week on Post-its on your Notes app. Even as screen backgrounds, you're not studying, you're seasoning your life with knowledge. Like garlic powder on popcorn, it just makes everything better. You start feeling it. The calm confidence when someone asks a question and you don't panic, you pause. Reach back in your memory and find it clean, no rust, no panic, just there. Like a jacket hanging exactly where you left it. And the best part, your brain stops. Seeing learning as this big, stressful task, it starts seeing it as part of you. Just like brushing your teeth, you don't question it, you just do it. And now, every review session is a silent nod to your future self. I got you. So when your friend says, "How do you remember all this stuff?" you just shrug. Because the real flex isn't remembering everything. It's remembering the right things at the right time with almost no effort. That's the cheat code. You're standing in line at the DMV, the universal waiting room of existential despair. Time has slowed. The fluorescent lights are too bright. But you're grinning because you're using interleaving. It sounds like something you do to fabric, but nope, it's a learning technique. Instead of studying one topic all the way through before moving on, you mix different subjects together like a chaotic knowledge smoothie. You remember when you first tried it. It felt like sabotage. How could switching from Spanish verbs to chemistry formulas to marketing jargon possibly help? It felt messy, disjointed, like trying to watch 3 Netflix shows at once. But then it clicked. Because interleaving forces your brain to work harder, it can't go on autopilot. It has to actually think about what it's doing. That's what research says, anyway, although some psychologists argue it only works with highly related topics. Whatever, you know it works for you. You start mixing everything. Learning guitar chords between Excel formulas, practicing interview answers while cooking, reviewing anatomy diagrams during commercial breaks. You don't compartmentalize anymore, you blend. Like your mind has become one of those multi-tab Google Sheets, chaotic, beautiful, slightly cursed, but always functional. You even start pairing things that shouldn't go together. Studying Japanese while listening to lo-fi medieval covers of pop songs. Memorizing legal definitions while reorganizing your closet. It works because it disrupts patterns, and disruption leads to deeper encoding. Your brain loves novelty. It's like a cat with a laser pointer. So now, instead of saying I'll study math for an hour, you say, I'll do 15 minutes of math, 15 of French, and 15 of memory science, then loop back. It keeps you alert, engaged, slightly confused, but in a productive way. The best part? You start noticing unexpected connections, one time, while switching between art history and programming. You realize both were just systems for understanding structure and light. Boom, new insight. That never would have happened if you'd stayed in your silo. Some days you forget what you were originally trying to learn, but you always remember more than you expected. And isn't that the point? To learn not just facts, but flexibility. To train your brain to shift, pivot, bounce. Life doesn't come at you one subject at a time. Why should learning? You're no longer building knowledge in silos. You're building a jungle gym. So when you hear someone say, I can't multitask, you smile gently and say, me neither, but I can interleave. and that's 10 times better. You're lying on the couch with a cold can of seltzer pressed to your forehead, halfway between consciousness and what day is it again. Your brain is tired, not fried, just toasty. But that's okay, because you've learned another secret: rest is part of the process. You don't guilt yourself for forgetting anymore. In fact, you plan for it. You let forgetting do its job. Like compost, messy, slow, but vital for growth, your brain, like any good drama queen, needs recovery time. It files memories during sleep, strengthens recall during daydreaming, and connects the weirdest dots when you least expect it, like while shampooing your hair or microwaving leftover pad thai. That's why you build in strategic pauses. Sometimes it's a 10-minute walk with no phone. Sometimes it's full-on sleep with ocean sounds and your favorite hoodie pulled over your face like a memory cocoon. Sometimes you just stare out the window and let your thoughts wander like squirrels on espresso. And it works because your brain doesn't stop learning when you stop cramming. It starts integrating. That's what the research shows, though scientists still argue about whether memory consolidation is more dependent on REM sleep, slow wave sleep, or the sheer force of your will to avoid that 11th TikTok you notice it the next morning. That fact you couldn't recall yesterday, it pops up fresh and ready like a loyal golden retriever. You didn't force it, you trusted the lag, you also stop calling it wasting time. You rename it incubation. It sounds smarter, but more importantly, it feels smarter. You stop working through burnout, you start dancing around it, and somehow your memory improves. Faster recall, clearer thinking, fewer "what was I saying again" moments unless you're trying to be funny, which, let's be honest, you are. You even start planning your week like a breathing cycle. Inhale, focused learning. Exhale, playful rest. It's not about doing less. It's about doing smarter. And when people say, "I just don't have the brain for this," you tell them the truth. You don't need more brain, you need more rhythm. Because memory is music, and you've stopped playing scales and started composing symphonies complete with pauses, echoes, and the occasional jazz solo. So now, even when you're resting, you're learning, and that changes everything. You're at a party, not a wild one, just one of those backyard, fairy light, slightly too much hummus situations. Someone's talking about conspiracy theories involving pigeons, and you're smiling politely, but your brain, it's rehearsing, not the social script, not a response to "so, what do you do?" No. You're quietly running a memory palace in the background because now it's automatic. You glance at the buffet table. In your mind, that bowl of olives becomes a hook for a physics formula. The tiki torch lights up a historical date. The lawn chair holds your grocery list, which you recite silently as someone offers you sparkling water. You've mastered the method of loci, the memory palace, the brain's oldest trick. Dressed in modern furniture, you remember the first time you tried it. Felt silly, like a kid playing pretend, but now it's effortless. You map knowledge onto spaces like Google Maps on espresso. Your house holds the periodic table. Your gym, vocabulary terms, that weird antique store downtown. Yeah, that's where you keep all your cybersecurity protocols. Your whole world has become a filing cabinet just with more weird lighting. The brain loves location. Scientists still debate why, but some believe our memory evolved around spatial awareness. The same system that helped your ancestors remember where the good berries grew now helps you recall password structures and song lyrics. You once stored all 46 U.S. presidents in a grocery store. Washington by the shopping carts, Lincoln in the Frozen peas aisle, you made Poke wear a name tag. It worked. Now you're unstoppable. You don't just recall things, you walk through them. You've taught your friends to do it too. Over coffee, over phone calls, picture your childhood home, you say. Now put that formula in your old bathroom. Just trust me, they do. And when they text you a week later saying they still remember it, you smile, because memory palaces aren't just tools, they're playgrounds. They turn the abstract into the familiar. They let you live with your knowledge instead of locking it away. So here you are at a party, smiling at a stranger who just said the CI invented birds, and you're thinking about how you stored the 7 steps of conflict resolution in your kitchen pantry. You've made your mind a mansion. Each memory has a room, every fact a home, and the lights are always on. You're in bed, lights off. That faint hum of the fan in the corner sounds like the universe exhaling. Your phone's on the charger, face down, no distractions, just the soft glow of your thoughts shuffling themselves into place, and somewhere in that quiet dark, you realize you've become the kind of person who remembers not just trivia, not just facts for tests or buzzers or smug comebacks at dinner parties. You remember what matters, what you care about, what builds you, because now you choose what to remember. It didn't happen overnight. It happened little by little, one space review at a time, one silly acronym, one memory palace map to a taco stand. It happened in microwave minutes and deep sleep dreams. It happened in forgotten flashcards and sudden flashbacks, and it was worth it. Because now, when someone says, "I just have a bad memory," you feel a flicker of sympathy, but also a little spark of rebellion, because that's not a sentence. That's a story they've been telling themselves, and stories can change, just like you did. You still forget things. Sometimes you walk into a room and completely blank on why. Sometimes you lose your keys, your train of thought, or your sanity halfway through a Zoom call. You're human. But underneath that, there's a rhythm, a method, a system quietly humming along, catching the important pieces before they slip away. You've stopped cramming. You've stopped panicking. You've stopped letting your memory be a passive passenger. Now it drives smoothly, occasionally blasting 90s pop songs. But hey, whatever works, and maybe, just maybe, you've learned to love the feeling of learning. Not the destination, not the checkbox, the process, the game, the groove. The moment you connect a dot and say, "Oh, that makes sense now." You've trained your brain to believe in itself. That's the real superpower, not speed, not volume. Ownership. So when someone asks, "How do you memorize stuff so fast?" you could give them a lecture. You could break down cognitive load, recall cues, and synaptic plasticity, but instead, you'll just smile and say, "I made it feel like mine," and now you drift softly toward sleep. The fan still spins. The memories settle into corners of your mind where they'll wait for you tomorrow. Not because you forced them, but because you invited them to stay.